Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of our video podcast, What's the Point?, where we get straight to the point on today's topics on cloud, data center, and the IT industry. Today's topic is a very interesting one and may actually impact some of our viewers. So change is scary, especially when your industry is going through big change and pivoting. 2020 has proven this to be true more than ever before. Change in some industries may also mean working with a managed service provider, like to your point, when Nutanix. As businesses adapt to meet these changing needs of their customers, IT professionals may often be asking themselves, what's next for my career? How will my responsibilities change? And am I being replaced or pushed out because we're working with a service provider? Although it may seem like IT professionals are in a tough place, there may be a lot of opportunities to pivot their career paths. Some of these pivots are obvious and some are not. So today we're speaking with Kong Yang from Nutanix, and we're going to dig a little deeper into what's driving those concerns, what are some of those foundational skill sets for IT pros, and how IT professionals can pivot with the changing business landscape. Pleased to have you on today, Kong.
Thank you for having me aboard, Matt. Excited to be on.
So let's dive right in. I'm going to ask you a few questions and get straight to the point. What are some of the biggest concerns IT professionals have when their organization starts working with a managed service provider like TierPoint powered by Nutanix?
Great question, Matt. That comes up a lot. And here at Nutanix, we like to start with the why. Right? Why would an organization, I would put myself in the shoes of those IT pros because I've been in those shoes. Like, why are we outsourcing? Why are we going to somebody else to deliver those services to our organization, right? And it always goes back to one thing, which is the business. It makes business sense. That's the bottom line, right? We're all in the business in IT of supporting the business, right? Our business is supporting the business, and the business is out there trying to sell services, products, whatnot, right? Trying to earn income. There's a saying that I like to say, the outcome of having no income is going out of business. And when that happens, none of us IT pros will have a job, right? And so that is the why. It is a business decision.
Excellent. Thank you. So can you help explain to us the evolution of an IT career path and what has changed over the years?
Sure. So in IT, change is inevitable, right? You have new technology constructs, new technology nomenclatures that you're trying to normalize, and then blend it with a lot of tech debt from the old technology that's getting replaced and so forth. So really in IT, like life, there's only two guarantees, right? Death and taxes. And by death, I mean failure of systems, failure of subsystems, right? Failure of processes, failure of technology in general. It will happen. You will have servers and systems that will fail. You will have overload conditions which cause the networks to go down. You will have people make mistakes. You will have ransomware, malware attacks that will take you down, right? Those are guarantees. Then you also have the taxes piece, which is you will inherit tech debt, tech inertia from your organization, right? Because people are involved in the process and people are irrational. People are unique, and they're the ones who create the processes, right? And so these processes get complex, get political, get, you name it, get very, very stacked. And I like to call them Frankenstein, right? Because you have people coming in and out of organizations as they transition out of jobs, and they're building these processes. And sometimes you're the new person in and you inherit it, and everybody's telling you it's working. Just keep the lights on, right? Don't mess with it. If it's working, just keep the lights on, right? And so you're burdened with all those debt. and at the same time, the business is coming back and saying, hey, you have to cut costs. We can't continue on this path, right? And and that change is even more pronounced with what companies are going through right now, trying to digitally transform the business. And I like to call that digital transformation business transformation, because they're trying to basically evolve their business processes to the way that consumers and businesses are consuming services, right, and are willing to pay, right. So folks are going away from these termed license deals, large capex up front, and going to more of a subscription model where it's like, I pay as I go. I like the utility of this piece. And I think what also comes of that is that folks who've entered into that model, who've jumped into like the hyperscalers, the public clouds, right, they've seen the heavy dose of cloud finance, and it comes at you fast. I'll give you an example. There was an organization here in my great Lone Star state of Texas, that decided to digitally transform their IT, right? And what that meant was replacing their 60-yacht internal IT organization and downsizing it down to around 8. They had all those 60 IT pros reapply for their job of 8. Only 4 maintained it, and it was miserable for those 4. It was miserable for those 60. They got displaced. Lives were disrupted into there. But they went to the cloud, and you're asking IT pros who are familiar with an on-premises technology stack to go to a new stack and learn it in this time while they're interviewing for their own jobs, right? Just trying to survive. What ended up happening was they went through a year and they're like, wow, the costs are very high. Don't know why. We were supposed to save money going to the cloud. When they looked at it, they ended up spending 4 to 5x their annual budget going to public cloud, because they would turn things on and they didn't know that they had to pay for ingress, egress, all of it. When you move something in, when you move something out, you're paying for those. You pay every time on that. When you turn on a service, yes, you're paying. It's a utility. It's and so it was a shocker to them, and they ended up disrupting themselves. Leadership was replaced twice in that organization until they got it right. And I guess the point there is getting back to your original question of change. They had a lot of tech debt in terms of the culture of the organization, in terms of the technology that they had enabled, and they didn't know how to navigate that to a successful business outcome. And that's the key. Even though IT is evolving, new data constructs are coming in, like you went from virtualization to public cloud to containers and microservices to serverless. And then all along there, you have companies like Docker, AWS, Azure, Nutanix, right? We're all coming in. We can solve the problem, but the question that IT pros have to ask themselves is, when I pick a solution, is that the best solution for my business? And will that solution help deliver successful business outcomes? And when you consider, to your point, powered by Nutanix, that is where you can have a set of trusted advisors augment your organization's skill sets, knowledge level, and so forth. That's the main difference with hyperscalers right there. You have one hand to shake, one throat to choke. And that adage remains true, because when it's all great when you throw an app into the cloud and it runs on day one, but what happens when it breaks down and you're losing money, right? Or you can't make money, your organization can't make money. That's when all heck breaks loose, right? And that day is guaranteed to come. Something will break, something will fail, something will change. and you will have to troubleshoot, remediate that, and ensure that the solution continues to work for your business. Who's going to have your back at that point, right? And that's something that a lot of IT pros aren't ready to address, because in IT, the general MO that's been is IT right equals IT might, right? So the more times you are right, the more you are allowed to quote unquote have this free reign leash. We have terms like the IT sniper, right? Who's the lieutenant for the CIO or the CTO of an organization, because they always ask the technically they're the ones that everybody goes through to check if it's technically feasible or run the solution through. And the truth of the matter is they're one person, and there's many ways to solve things. They can't know everything. That's impossible, right? So when organizations have been built that way, they run into this issue of just compiling this debt, and there's a lot of interest with it, because when you lose that sniper and they go to a different organization, and in IT they tend to not document things very well. You have all this debt and you dump it to the next person coming in. It's a bad scene, right? So the evolution of IT, you have the technology, but the most problematic pieces are the people and the process that comes through there.
Excellent, thank you. So I hear this. Let's put myself in the shoes of an IT pro. What would be some of those foundational skill sets that I would need to succeed in the future?
Yep, that's a great question, Matt. And you know, I previously answered what's changing in there, but I like a question that Jeff Bezos asked. Right, a question that he asks of his direct reports is, what hasn't changed, over time in there, and those are the key foundational things, right? So in terms of foundational skill sets, well, IT is always supporting business. What does IT do? What does the business do? It sells. It's out there selling something, right? So number one on the list, and Bill Gates would agree, the number one skill that you need is sales skills, right? And I know that a lot of IT professionals are allergic to sales skills, because I hear that a lot. First thing that comes out of folks' mouths are, I hate sales. I hate salespeople. There's a lot of hate out there for sales. But the thing is, we all are in the business of supporting sales. If you're in a for-profit organization, you're in sales, and your goal there is to help your sellers sell more. And because it gets back to that adage, if you have no income, outcome is you're out of business in there. So sales is the first and foremost, because you have to help the business succeed. That and that's first and foremost. And a lot of those sales skills, deal with the one thing that a set of skills that IT pros need to absolutely have, which is EQ, emotional intelligence. And Jack Ma calls it the most important skill that a professional needs to have, and it's the greatest barometer for success, right? Is emotional intelligence, because with EQ, with a high level of EQ, you can relieve stress. Tech is stressful, because guess what? You're competing with other technology companies that have just as smart of people, just as savvy of business folks and sales folks, right? Who are connected into there. And you have to drive a profit, right? You have to differentiate yourself from all the other folks. What's your value add as an organization? And I think a lot of IT pros get lost in the fact of, thinking, well, I'm the highest certified folk in the latest and greatest tech. So I'm invincible. Well, that's wrong because there's always going to be a latest and greatest tech that's even better than yours coming through. And where it's going to be better than yours and drive like adoption, like a exponential rate of growth of adoption, is if it's better for the business, right? If it creates more profit for the business, if it's all those things. So EQ, and also along with, underneath EQ, it's like effective communications, right? Things like empathy, being able to overcome challenges and resolving conflicts, because all those things come up in IT. Because guess what? Folks are very opinionated. It gets back to the IT right equals IT might in there, and you have to work with a lot of teams because silos are being busted, right? For instance, Nutanix. Why was Nutanix a disruptive innovation? Because we consolidated a lot of these moving parts, disparate parts, right? The server, the storage, the networking piece get consolidated into hyper-converged infrastructure. And although there were a lot of naysayers at the beginning, I would dare say that the industry has warmed itself up in a big way to HCI. I mean, we have competitors out there who, jumped aboard the HCI train. You have public cloud and hyperscalers doing the same, and we're empowering our partners like TierPoint to deliver that goodness. And the main reason why we're successful is we've delivered so many successful business outcomes.
Excellent. So what about soft skills? So what are some of the soft skills you wouldn't necessarily get from certification? How do you develop those?
So let's start with you kind of mentioned it there, but let's define soft skills, because it's quite cloudy. It's like defining cloud. What is cloud? And then you add all these adjectives like multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, private cloud, public cloud, and so forth. So what's soft skills? Um, One of my friends defined it the best, and this is the best that I've heard of it, is soft skills is any skill that you don't need a certification to measure, right? Simple definition. You don't need to pass the test to certify that you know this technology, that you have this knowledge base. That's what soft skills are. To develop and hone soft skills, it's like Allen Iverson's rant, right? Practice. Who needs practice? But in the opposite meaning of practice. So I'd like to tell IT pros that I talk to, think about it as TLC, right? So you tend to think of it as tender love and care in there, but the acronym TLC is apropos, because when you think of it, T is for try, right? You have to, in order to be a practice leader, you have to have experience. There's no easy button for that. You just have to experience it, and then you learn, constantly learning, right? So the L is learn. So you always have to be learning, and then C is communicate. So this TLC is the framework in which you practice, right? So let's say I'm learning a new technology construct, like when I was learning serverless, right? And AWS Lambda is an example of that technology. I took a real world business use case and tried to refactor it into replatform it into serverless, because I wanted to get experience firsthand with serverless. So what I did is, everybody's going to e-commerce. Usually you have your main website that's selling products, has like, you could have X number of pictures, usually hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands if you're a big enough e-commerce site in there. and then you have a mobile site, and folks would have um, you know um, employees basically resize those images, right? So you get new images of products, resize them for the mobile experience, right? So and then they started to automate that with scripting to do the same functions, right? Spending a lot of development times and getting the automation scripts right and all this other stuff. So so that's a real business need. I took it to serverless, and it was quite easy, right? So so you go through, you run it, you have this data set. The hardest part was the change piece, right? Like, how do you detect new images that are going into that bucket, and then start the process. With serverless, you can detect that new event, like, oh, hey, I have new images in this namespace bucket. Okay, call my function resize image. It resizes it, and then call another function called put into mobile. Boom, and then there you go, and it's done. And once you test it on a few and verify that it works, you're good to go, because all you need to know is the object's namespace and basically the source and destination, and your functions will do what you need it to do, right? And so I think, that highlights the point that there's so many solutions for the business problems that IT is supporting, right? So many ways to do it. And what IT professionals need to do is try, learn, and communicate, right? So that they know what's the best solution for the business. Because if you throw the same solution at the problem, you might be solving the wrong problem. And then it gets back to the question, like, uh, is my job secure, right? Because at the end of the day, you want a long career, and in order to have a long career, you need to be valuable to the business, right?
Excellent. And I think you covered a lot of good ground in there, and you've given some good advice already. But what parting advice would you give to some of our viewers who may be IT pros in this predicament?
Yeah, Matt. I think, you have the status quo stuff that a lot of IT leaders put out there, like, be passionate. Um, there's no substitute for experience and know-how, right? Don't be afraid to fail, and these are more aspirational stuff. It's hard to action on those, right? you know um, I would say the most important thing is build a trusted network of advisors that you can go to. It will help you on a lot of fronts. It will help you as you practice, because you need a soundboard. You need to be able to optimize your learning, right? When I was working for a former company, I developed this tech skills, foundational tech skills framework. I called it the Dart and Soar framework. So Dart, if you think of a dartboard, you're throwing a dart at a moving solution, a nebulous solutions. How big is the dartboard that you're aiming the dart at, right? But Dart stood for, like, discovery, alerting, remediation, troubleshooting. That's what a lot of IT pros start out with in their career, right? Because you don't know, so you have to discover the environment, you have to discover the technology, then you have to set up alerts to see when things go wrong, because they will, and then you have to be able to remediate and troubleshoot those, right? So those are basic foundational technical skills, right? Now, where you can soar with your career is the latter half, right? The security aspects. Security is uber important. Optimization, automation, and reporting. Now, all those four pieces, the SOAR, piece of that will allow you to elevate your career, right? So that's from a technical perspective. The soft skills stuff, right? Once you practice, you need that network to confirm some of your hypotheses and your tested solutions in that case, right? And then also, if you're able to clearly communicate what your solution is, and you can speak to it and explain it in a minute versus a 60-minute rant, then you got gold, because then you know your solution is on point. Now, the last piece that would make that, basically fortify your career is always keep the business outcome in, as the basis for your solutions, right? So you build out your trusted network of advisors, and then you're always factoring in the business outcomes, right, into there, and you're putting into the test. That group of trusted advisors is key to having a long career, because leadership will change at organizations, and you might not jive with that leadership team. It happens in there. Your network is the closest to allowing you to navigate your career and move. They're also the easiest door openers for you, and allows you to practice those soft skills, because they should give you feedback on, like, hey, if you want to go up in your career, if you want to go into like product marketing or technical marketing, you need to hone these different skills. You have to write more, not technical stuff, but things like you were once a buyer, right? So put yourself in the shoes of, you say you hate marketing, because marketing and sales tend to get put into the same S&M bucket, right? Just bringing a lot of pain for IT pros, right? You're inundating me with too much email. Just another webinar. Goodness gracious, what are you guys doing to me? In there. But if you put yourself in that shoes, like, okay, if I was a marketer, what would I want to see, right? What is of interest to me, and I think that's where you can grow your career, and take different paths, different branch off into products, branch off into marketing, even going into engineering, or design. So I think IT pros who just are so focused on the solution du jour, right? And get so deep into it and defend it in there, unless it's COBOL, and there are those corner technology use cases, which, regardless of tech debt and so forth, they're always in need. But the reason why COBOL is in need is because it supports financial institutions that don't want to change, right? So there's always a business outcome. Unless you find that corner case, I mean, you have to, take to heart, some of these soft skills, develop it, nurture it, and then have a group of close confidants who will tell you the truth. Like, hey, you really need to beef up your EQ, because you can't just always get mad. You need to learn how to collaborate better, and all these other things.
Well, thank you, Kong. This has been a really enlightening conversation, and I think I've learned a lot, and I think a lot of our listeners and viewers who are IT pros can take some of this guidance, and it can help them improve their career path, or help alleviate some of that stress that they may be feeling as their business rapidly evolves. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Matt, for having me.
Yeah, and thank you to our viewers. Look out for more episodes of What's the Point in the Future, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you.